Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high-achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. Before we start, if you have ever listened to this podcast and thought, I really wish that I could talk this through with Dr. Brittany, I have great news for you, because that is exactly why I built a ChatGPT called Dr. Brittany AI. It is fully trained on my methodology and it helps you think through real situations, real time. So think work, marriage, parenting. It is basically like having me in your pocket. Link is in the show notes. Now, okay, let's get into today's episode. Alrighty, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, well, I actually don't know if it's morning for you. I am recording this in the morning. Currently, like at the time of this recording, we are snowed in Dallas. And let me just tell you, today is going to be a little bit of an experiment, okay? I have two wonderful, like some of the best friends that I have ever had. They live just a few streets down. We are like iced in, so I say snowed in. We are iced in here in Dallas, Texas. So when I woke up and realized we were iced in, day 2, texted my friend, was like, hey, y'all should come over for breakfast. Y'all can play with the kids, and those of y'all with the village understand this. I was like, please help me co-regulate. And they came over. Well, both of these friends are engineers, so they love a good project, and they're really big into like making content, all of these things. And one thing to know is that my home office has been such a pain point for me, because getting cameras and lights and laptops and setups figured out. Like, I am not a tech person. I am not a spatially aware person. Anyway, so they helped me get my podcast set up, figured out. I'm really big on like do it messy, so I've been recording this podcast off of my laptop, no problem. But I do have these really nice cameras that I was like, it would be fantastic to be able to use this. So today's episode is being recorded off of that with like a few different components here. So part of this is that I'm not wearing my little ADHD headphones. So we are gonna see how today goes. If y'all listen to this episode and y'all are like, oh my gosh, this is insane, you cannot concentrate to save your life, just give me that feedback, okay? Like, slide into my DMs, don't leave a review, rude, but like, let me know. Okay, now, before I get too off into ADHD distracted land, I want to tell you what we're doing today, because today we're going to have a little bit of story time. And I'm really going to set this up intentionally because, you know, one thing with other industries is they can bring case studies, they can bring stories, they bring real life material to sort of pull back the curtain a little bit on the work that they do. And I have always been very hesitant in doing this as a therapist, as a psychologist, as a coach, right? Because the material that I am handed, it is just such a place of privilege to be sitting in these spaces with these women who they have status in their communities, they have status in their industries, which really means they have a lot of pressure that is being put on them. And I take the trust that these women put into me so seriously, right? So it's nothing that they have ever shared with me or anything like that. But one, there's like confidentiality, y'all. Like, there's legal issues here. But also, two, there is just the space that I hold within my community with my clients. It truly is just so important to me. But what we are going to do today is we're going to talk through a vignette. We're going to have a little like story time with Dr. Brittany, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to run through a story. Now, this story is a conglomeration of like a million different clients, because while at the end of, like, we would all love to believe that we are special and we are unique and our story is unique, but I have yet to, and maybe like my first year in practice or 2 years in practice, there were a few stories where I was like, oh, this is surprising. But honestly, I have yet to come across someone, work with someone who had a 100% unique story. This is part of what makes me so good at my job, is I am so honed in to the clients that I work with. And I always say I do what I do very, very well. And I do not do everything. And part of that is I'm just very good at recognizing patterns. And my clients fall into the same pattern. It might deviate just a little bit. It might shift just a little bit over here. But at the end of the day, I understand 1 and 1 is 2, right? So I'm going to walk you through a story, and we're going to run it through as if this really happened. And I will tell you, it has really happened. It's just that it's happened 5 million times. Versus with the one person, and I'm going to call her Lacey, and we're going to talk through this story about Lacey. But the purpose of this story is that I am going to share with you what I hear as a therapist that are red flags that tell me this person is not quite as put together as she would like to be perceived to be, right? Because this is the thing, is that if you're listening to this podcast and you resonate with this material, and I know that you do because you are one of hundreds of listeners who continue to show up, literally show up in this space every single week. Before I have pushed it out, before I have marketed what we're talking about this week, I am so beyond honored to get to share space and build this community in this way, because I can see that the material is resonating, and my hope is that, we get to do something with it. You get to do something with it, right? That's the heart behind this podcast. Anyway, like I said, I'm not wearing my ADHD headphones today, okay? So we are going to talk through this experience that I had with Lacey. It was our first session, and we are then I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain, okay? I'm going to let you know, what is it that I am hearing as trauma therapist that is red flag, red flag, red flag, and then by the time you leave this episode, you will have some of these indicators that are going to tell you ooh, maybe I do struggle with some of this stuff more than I realized. Because I will tell you, at the time of this recording, in the last 6 months, what I have seen is an uptick in women who are inhabiting positions of power. They are running these incredible companies, right? And they don't know for sure if this work is for them. They just know that something is off. And so when I have jumped on calls with them, when they have come into the retreat, typically it's because they've said, I think that there might be something going on, and I really have to get out. Okay, I'm going to jump in here really quick, because if this episode is feeling uncomfortably accurate, here is the truth. Insight alone is not going to help you rewire this. The Elite Leader is a bespoke retreat where we slow this work down, really truly move it through your nervous system to where it is automatic and systematized so that you stop carrying what is not yours. It is small, immersive, and luxury, and it is built for high-performing women who are done managing everything. The waitlist link is in the show notes. I will see you there. Okay, what does this look like? And I'm listening for certain things, right? To even say if there's enough of a pain point here to work with them. So, okay, let's jump in. Let's focus. And now we are transitioning into story time with Dr. Brittany, okay? So, I want to paint the picture. I'm in my cutie little Frisco office. Loved her till my business shifted to being online. Rest in peace to this beautiful business, or this beautiful office. I adored her. She had, guys, for those of y'all who never were in my office or saw it, I had this gorgeous Tiffany lamp, full-length mirror. Don't ask me why I had that. It just really fit the space. I had this gorgeous crate and barrel bookshelf, and then I brought my lamp home and my kids knocked it over. It was really heartbreaking. So I am sitting there. It is a Monday afternoon. She's the second client that I have seen out of 3 that I will see total for this whole day. I'm sitting here, and one thing that I do as a therapist, whether I am in a private one-to-one session, whether I am walking into a new networking space, whether I am walking into certainly retreat spaces, and really a feature of my approach and modality is that I pay attention to what's happening in my body as an indicator of what is going on in my client's body. This is something that I was trained in, a modality that I was trained in, and this also really requires that I keep the tool, right? Which here we're talking about like my body and the sensations that I have internally. Like I really have to stay on top of that, and I have to notice, am I having a reaction to this person? Am I picking up on some of this person's stuff? And that's like a whole other episode. But so I'm sitting here, and part of what I do before I have a first or like second or third session with a client is I start to notice, right? Because sometimes I'll get really anxious before a client walks in the door, and I'll have this moment where I'm sitting and I'm processing and I'm writing process notes, right? I do a lot of that with every single person that I work with. And I will be like, whoa, like what is this anxiety about? And usually there's like confusion on my end, and that tells me that there's about to be a very anxious human who's walking in the door. Or sometimes I will randomly feel really scattered, or I'll start to feel really agitated, and I go through my checklist and I say, okay, is this a response that I'm having to this person? Is there anything about this person's material that brings up my own unintegrated material? Do I have a feeling toward this person where I feel less than, or I do feel agitated at the way they've been treating me? In this case, on this day, I started to feel really scattered. And it happened like 10 minutes before she walked in the door. So I'm sitting, because typically sessions were not back to back. Sometimes they were, but usually they weren't. I was coming out of lunch. I was coming out of process note land. And all of a sudden, I just could not concentrate on anything to save my life, which at this point in the day was odd. It just wasn't typical for me. And I started to feel really confused about it, of like, what is going on? Which for me is a flag. Then I'm feeling curious. Then I'm wondering, okay, Lacey is working at a Fortune 500. She is literally sitting in C-suite. A little bit of information about her is that she is divorced. She has a relationship with kiddos, but it's strained. And she has littles. So she has a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. She is currently in a relationship. She is like remarried. And that relationship is what has brought her into therapy in the first place. She knows that there are things she needs to work on. And she came in with the same mentality that every single one of my clients has come in with, which is just tell me what to do to fix this relationship, and I will go and I will do it. I will do the extra coping skill. I will add in the exercise regimen. I will communicate. Good enough so that then I am ready to go and get my husband to behave the way that I need him to behave, right? And then she like walks into my office, and I was like, let's talk about mom and dad. So I start to notice that I'm feeling scattered, and I just make a note to myself. And then me being me, I get my legs up on the wall, meaning I lay on my back. And this is just like a go-to somatic exercise for me when I'm feeling overwhelmed. One of my favorite positions to get sensations up and out of my body, or just to sit with them, is to lay on my back and then put my feet straight up the wall. So I literally just stayed there for like 3-4 minutes. I've had my hands up and I was hanging out. At the time when we were supposed to start our session, I go ahead, I open my office door. Of course, she is on time. She is always on time. She's never not on time, and she is holding one phone in this hand and then 2 phones in her left hand. This woman had 3 phones with her. Okay, now you're talking to someone who, like, I have 2 phones. I do have a work phone, and then I have my personal phone. And reason for that is I know that I struggle with boundaries. So I'm not hating on multiple phones, right? My work phone doesn't leave my work office, like my home office. It stays here unless I have something I directly want to share, because otherwise I struggle with the boundary, right? But she's got all her phones in her hand at once, and she's finishing up a message, and she kind of quickly looks up and is like, okay, thank you, I'm coming. Comes in, sits, crosses her legs, hands are sort of like on top of each other in her lap, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And she's like, okay, one second, because like she's got two phones that are buzzing. And as soon as she sits down and I feel the energy in the room, I'm like, okay, this is where the scattered, anxious energy was coming from. This makes total sense now. So I'm like letting her finish up, and I'm just sort of waiting, right? And then she jumps in and she silences her two work phones. Okay, so 1 and 2, they're silenced. They get put over here. They're not put in a bag, but they are put to the corner of the couch. And she pulls out her personal phone for her notes, right? And at this point I've asked her, like, hi, how are you? How's it going? And she's sort of sitting with a rigid posture, not defensive, like it's not cold, it really isn't, but it is, I don't have time to relax. I really can't melt into this space, even though that's quite literally what I am paying for, right? The feeling is, I just have things to do. I have a to-do list. And so taking care of myself is going to be one of the things on my to-do list. She pulls out her list of things to hit, which I love a good list. And she sort of is going over all of the things that she's done. She's hitting on all of her homework, right? Lacey is telling me, okay, so since last time we met, I've hit all of my steps and I have been paying attention to the sensations in my body. There really haven't been a ton. And I've been feeling pretty calm and pretty regulated. And she's using a lot of this therapy jargon at me, like this Instagram language, right? Like this TikTok therapy university starts coming out of her. And what I'm noticing is that her tone is staying the same. Okay, there's not a lot of inflection in her tone. We're not flat, but we are very polished, very, very polished. And she is focusing on what she has done well, which if you are paying to be in some sort of self-help container, like sometimes that is really fun. And yes, let's celebrate the things that you're doing well. But what I would argue is going to be more supportive and helpful in all of the things is focusing on what do we need to work on. Or being able to celebrate the fact that you just did all these things really well, right? That's not what she was doing. She's sort of rattling off her list and just letting me know, like, hey, I've caught up on last week's homework. I did what I was supposed to do. And then she doesn't talk about her kids. She starts complaining about work. And this actually happened very specifically whenever her Apple Watch started to buzz, because she's also got the Apple Watch, okay? And listen, I love a wearable. I actually reached out to Aura and said, y'all should sponsor me. And like, shout out to Aura Ring, you still should sponsor me. All of my clients wear the Aura Ring, and I love data. I believe that for someone who is in their head a whole bunch, and if using data to inform behavior is already a strength for you, then you should capitalize on that. You shouldn't fight it, okay? We should lead there and then move into like sensations in the body, blah, 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 whatever. But the Apple Watch, and specifically how it buzzes whenever you have a message, and like if you're not silencing it, drives me batty. And I'm just like, if you're not someone with incredible like boundaries and being able to separate and be like, I'm not going to look at this, I just don't think you need to be wearing it. No one needs to be that connected all of the time. It gives me like, it stresses me out. But I do love like HRV data, stuff like that, right? HRG, I don't know. So her phone is going off. She looks at it, right? Like mid-sentence. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I have to take this. Which always makes me giggle in therapy, because I'm like, you're literally paying to be in this space and to get better and use this space like essentially how you want to. Like if you want to take a call from your boss and you want to insert them into the room, that's your business. So she picks up the phone and she's telling them, hey, I had this time blocked off on my calendar, and you like, I'm in a meeting and I will get back to you. I'll circle back around. She waits for like the briefest of moments and then hangs up the phone, and we move on, right? She looks at me and she is like, I blocked off this meeting on the calendar. I don't know why no one can respect that. And now I'm seeing a little bit more affect. Now I'm seeing a little bit more shift here, right? And I'm like, okay, so work is a safe place to for us to feel our feelings. Got it. So she's continuing down her list, and she's also talking about there are all of these fires at work, and everyone keeps bringing their problems to her, but no one listens. No one actually goes and implements the changes operationally that she said would solve these issues in the first place. No one can do it consistently. They just wait. They wait for it to bubble up, and then there's a fire, and then I have to go in and fix it, right? And I'm giggling as I'm saying this because I'm my brain is, of course, moving at just a rapid pace as I'm listening to this, right? And I'm noticing like my heartbeat is just like picking up a little bit. I'm a little bit more fidgety, and I'm just like, man, there's a lot happening in this woman's body that she is not dealing with. Because when I look at her, she's sitting very still, right? Like tense still. So it's not a heavy, grounded still. It is like I am put together. And it is important for me to look put together. Even though she looks like a Lululemon, like Pilates princess, okay? Like her makeup is still done. She's still very, very put together. So then she moves into the meat and potatoes of why she is here, which is her husband. And now I'm like, we're getting somewhere, because she starts talking about how they were supposed to have a date night, and a pain point for this woman is that her husband doesn't do the things that he says he's going to do. As a therapist, this is called say-do correspondence. Powerful women tend to be in relationship with passive men. Not all of the time, and I'm not even saying passivity is a bad thing, but opposites attract. So if we're thinking about a traditional masculine and feminine energy, typically, not always, but typically what we see is that opposites are going to attract in this specific way. And if you are a woman in corporate America, and this is a hill that I will die on, I do not care how like liberal or warm or whatever these companies are trying to look. If you are a woman in corporate America sitting in a place of executive leadership, you operate, at least at work, in a very masculine energy, meaning it is assertive. You are pushing for yourself. You're advocating. You have probably had to work 3 times as hard as the person next to you to make sure that your ideas and opinions are not only heard at the meeting, but that you also get credit for them, right? Unless you are a white man. You are having to work incredibly hard, which means the bulk of your day is spent in this masculine orientation of go, 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 hit your numbers, get the project done, put out the fire. But then what happens is you are married to someone who complements this, right? And here's the other thing about my community. If you were listening to this, I imagine you're going to resonate with this, is that we love us some self-help. We are all about doing better, moving faster, and what can I do to evoke change from a system that I am a part of? Whether that is a system at work, a system at home, how can I fix it and do it? Because this is this is what you are used to, right? This is also the pattern that you have been handed from childhood. Is, oh my gosh, I need you to be good. I need you, I being like a parent, right? I need you to help me. I need you to do this. And hey, when you do that, when you're really good and you smile and you help your sibling and you get the A on the test, well, hey, now the system, the family settles down a little bit, right? This is where we get like a hero complex, a God complex. It's a whole other thing. But like, you are taught that you have power over a system, when in reality, you really don't, because none of us are God. None of us actually truly have control over anything other than ourselves. And yet, when Lacey walked into the office, the very first thing that she said on her call, right, on her like consultation call, was, I just need to know what I need to do in order to get my husband to do what I have asked him to. Because I'm not asking for everything, right? Like in this specific instance, what she was talking about in her session was, he said that he would plan a date night. And I have told him that it is a pain point for me that he doesn't pursue me. He doesn't take the lead. And I'm always having to lead everything. And keep in mind, this is the way that their relationship has operated from the get-go. The difference is, at the beginning of the relationship, she liked the way that this felt. This feels safe. Right? Now we're getting into like attachment styles, things like that. But this feels safe. This feels normal. He feels he is a good guy. He is such a good guy. He's such a good dad. I hear this over and over and over again. In fact, if you, okay, like random shot, I move so much and then all like my, my tech moves. If you've ever found yourself saying this, there's a really good book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. 10 out of 10 recommend. Everyone should go pick it up, okay? But she has said, you know, he's such a good guy, and it's different than my last marriage. And I really want to make this one work. But also, the more I get into this relationship, the more I'm realizing that there actually are some similarities. So she is going on. She is complaining that, you know, he said he was going to plan a date night, and he never followed through. I don't understand why he didn't follow through. And on top of that, I put reminders in the calendar for him. I had a reminder that said, time to plan date night. I had a reminder that said, it is date night, like this weekend is our weekend. And I had reminders set a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. I did everything for him, and he just doesn't do it. I don't understand why he doesn't do it. And at this point, little like therapist Brittany, who cannot hold a poker face to save her life, asked me what I got feedback on in my supervision for my entire career, is like grinning just a little bit, because at this point I have rapport with this client. She knows what I'm thinking, okay? We're like early on in our work, but not that early on in our work. She already knows what, like, I'm gonna say. So I'm sort of grinning a little bit. I'm like, okay. And after she sort of is done talking through her complaints about her husband who will not follow through with anything, I asked her, okay, so what would it be like if you were to just accept that this is who your husband is? And when I tell you that this very polished woman got really big and puffy, right? Meaning like her shoulders came back and then her tongue was moving a little bit. And she told me, I do accept that this is how, like, who he is. I am accepting it. And at this point, I'm like grinning just a little bit more, right? And it feels, on my end, it feels very like endearing. There's a piece of me that relates to this. There's a piece of me that wants to give her a hug, although I would never dream of offering her a hug at this point. Not at this point. And she's telling me I'm not asking for too much. Because, again, this is something that Lacey has been told a million times. Your standards are too high. You need to lower your standards at work with your team. You need to lower your standards with your management. You need to lower your standards in your marriage. You need to lower your standards of your children. Like, this has been beat into this woman in so many women's heads of, you need to lower your standards. And I just honestly, like, I disagree with it. I think it's BS. But so she's a little bit defensive at this point. She's telling me, like, my standards are not too high To which I agreed with her. I was like, no, you're literally asking your husband of, at this point, 3 years to plan a date night. I agree with you. I don't think that is too much. And what I told her was, but this is not the first time we've had this conversation. We've had this conversation over and over and over and over again. And I very much believe in accepting behavior as a truth about a person versus their words. I do not care what a person says. I mean, I do, right? Don't get me wrong. But I think it is far more indicative of what a person is capable of, what they're interested in prioritizing, and who they are, basing that off of the data their behavior gives me versus their intent, versus their words, versus what they wanted to do. I just don't really care about what they wanted to do, because at the end of the day, if that's not what is being acted on, then we cannot move off of that. Unless you are comfortable waiting in the gray, right? Most of my women aren't. Most of my clients aren't. I thrive in a little more of a black and white space, right? I'm not saying don't have grace for someone. I'm just saying you need to believe someone when they tell you who they are based on the behavior that they take, the action that they take. And here's the other thing that I hear, right, that goes off in my head, is there's a desire, an expectation, a conscious want for, Lacey wanted her husband to step up and be an adult in their relationship. She wanted him to change a dynamic that had been very ingrained in this relationship and did not start in this relationship. But she wanted him to really, truly step up and be assertive and be in a place of leadership. And yet, so that's what her words are telling me. But yet, what her behavior is reinforcing, because she set reminders, she mentioned it to him 6 or 7 times, she had a few ideas picked out just in case, and then she had more reminders on the calendar. She was babying him. Right? This is a grown man who, to this point, had been able to hold a very successful career in corporate America. He has been supporting and helping to raise children. He gets up every single day and he wipes his butt and he puts on his clothes and he eats his food and he chews it all by himself. This is a grown man, okay? And yet you are mothering him. This is not about teamwork. Right? This is about Lacey, who has a very overactive prefrontal cortex that is anticipating needs for her husband. And it looks like this, right? Someone saying, come here, come closer. So I'm gesturing someone to come closer while my other hand is out. While my other hand is saying, absolutely not. You don't get to come any closer. Here's the reality. If you are looking to shift a dynamic, and this is just so this is first red flag, let's jump into flags now, okay, is that if your behavior does not align with your words, what you are telling me, that's a red flag. For there is unintegrated material, there's something happening under the surface that you are not ready to talk about, admit, really delve deeper into. Lacey was behaving like a mother. She was behaving in the way that she should, right? What she was doing, I do that for my toddlers all the time. And I should, because I signed up to be their mom. What I don't do is I don't do that for my husband. Used to, shout out, under stress, 100%. But what I want to, what I listen for, what's the red flag, is that this is a pain point for her. This is something that she wants to shift. It's also a childhood wound for her, is that she never felt as though mom and dad put in the time to get to know her or make her feel chosen. And she's operating from a place of, I can control the system. When in reality, what I would actually expect to see here, if someone genuinely wanted to and was ready to make this shift, right, I would expect that they are going to give their partner very clear expectations and very clear consequences. And then they would go freaking sit on their hands and they would let it all show up. Because here's the deal. You don't get to change a relationship dynamic. You do not get to step into a healthier marriage and relationship without first accepting the human being that you are married to. If you are trying to change your husband, if you're treating him like a project, then you are behaving like a child. Children want to change their parents. They want their attention. Right? Like right now, golly, my son, he's almost 2. He will literally like smack me in the chest if I stop paying attention to him, or I'm on my phone, or I'm paying attention to his sister, and he's like, nah, dog, right here, give me your attention. He will smack me, right? Like, that is his way of like getting my attention. Currently, we're working on it, but there is this experience, this feeling, this idea in their mind that if I lose connection with my parent, like that is equatable to death inside of the nervous system, right? It's scary. And especially if they can't bring it back on. That's the space that women get stuck in when they're in a space of wanting to change and control their husbands, okay? Second red flag is that this is a pattern that's taking place. So the other thing that I listen for as a trauma therapist, and FYI, I don't do this on the streets. Like I get asked that too, especially like networking and whatever. They're like, oh my gosh, now you're judging me. I'm like, I'm not judging you unless you're like paying me. I had a wonderful conversation with someone who's in a different industry, and I was sort of sharing that, you know, like if we, especially with my clientele, we're in similar spaces, industries, like it can get a little bit messy, meaning I run into people that I work with in different spaces where I'm not functioning as therapist or coach or whatever. I'm functioning as like a colleague or just like friend, right? And especially like in networking spaces. And I was like, FYI, like Brittany who shows up there is not the same as Brittany who shows up on our call. And this person was like, oh my gosh, I totally get that, because I have this gift of forgetting details whenever I see clients outside of the office. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think that is what it is. It's like a whole different brain comes online, right? So I always tell people anyway, like unless you're paying invoices and there's whatever, then FYI, like I'm actually not using that part of my brain. I'm actually looking to like connect with you as a human being. Anyway, so what I'm hearing in this session is that this pattern of overfunctioning has taken place at work, and that she's reinforcing this pattern that she says that she wants to step out of, right? So, for example, the meeting was set on her calendar. She told them, I won't be available. And then when they called and they interrupted and they crossed that request or that boundary, she picked up the call. Right? Even though she said, I told them I wouldn't be available. But girl, you are available. So they are believing what you do. They are operating in this whole dynamic, and then you copy and paste that dynamic at home. It's exactly what I heard was going on with her marriage, right? I told him that I wanted him to go and plan the date night, but he just never does it. And I did this, and I did this, and I did, like, there's incongruence, right, between the contents of the words that are being said versus the behaviors. This is part of why this podcast is called the Aligned Powerhouse. What I seek to hand my clients in retreats is congruence, which means you're usually not as smiley on the other end. You are usually a little bit more disruptive because you no longer take other people's BS, but more importantly, you don't carry it, right? Once you hand these things back, you start to shift the systems that you're in, because I will tell you, right, spoiler alert, all of these systems that you are really tired in, and or these rooms where you're the smartest person here, right? And you are the person that everyone is relying on and you're literally like moving the quickest, this is a system and a way of operating that you have contributed to creating just as much as they have. So if we want to shift that, we have to focus on your behavior first. We have to pull it into alignment and create more congruency. Okay. The third red flag that I heard from this, well, this is more one that I saw and something that I look for and something that kind of makes my clients really uncomfortable, because you got to keep in mind the woman that you are. If you were listening to this, you operate under pressure. Like when I'm talking branding and things like that, the problem that I solve is pressure. Pressure at home to be everything, pressure at work to always be on. This is truly what drives a lot of the dysfunction and the exhaustion and the breakdown that we see happening. It's about pressure. When you are someone who has not only thrived in a pressure cooker, but truly you've been raised in a pressure cooker, right? Because if you are oldest daughter, then you are someone who's always had expectation to be good put on you, then you are someone who you hold your body in a very specific way. Now, I am talking about gestures, I am talking about body language, all of these things, but truly it really comes down to this idea of congruency again. So what I would expect and what I notice, so what I noticed as Lacey is silencing all of her phones is her behavior is a little bit more fidgety, right? All while her legs are tightly crossed. They're very tightly crossed, right? And the couch in my office, like she's a pretty good size. She takes up almost a wall. And so there's space to spread out. There's space to cross your legs if that's comfortable, or even put your legs up. Or to sit with crossed legs when that is comfortable. But here's what really stood out to me in this session is that her legs never moved. She like recrossed them like twice, but by and large, they did not move. And it almost looked like the bottom half of her body stayed still while the top half was moving, right? There wasn't connection. There wasn't integration. There wasn't even a movement as she became more agitated. When the top part of her body was more agitated, as she was talking about her husband, or as her Apple Watch was going off like literally 10 times in this session, right? There wasn't a flow, there wasn't connection. So that really stood out to me. The other thing is her hands would be in her lap. And when she did that, I was looking at like her fingers because they were like in place. It almost looked like she was taking a picture, right? And the way that it appeared to me was that, now, and keep in mind, I'm someone who talks a lot with my hands. If you're watching the video of this, if you're watching a clip on YouTube or whatever, you know that I talk a lot with my hands, and not everyone does that, right? But so it's not the lack of gesturing that stood out to me. It was the picture as a whole. There's something in medicine in particular. So I grew up with 2 doctors, and what they would talk about is looking at the whole picture rather than one symptom. So it isn't just that this woman in front of me is crossing her legs and being really careful with her gestures and with her movements, but then she's a little bit fidgety and it starts to like bubble up a little bit, right? It's also the fact that she doesn't make a ton of eye contact, which again, that could also be a trauma thing. It's not about this one thing. It is about everything as a whole. We are at this point, we're in like our 4th or 5th session, okay? We've already started talking about trauma drama, like from 0 to 18, this childhood stuff. We're starting to make these connections. And I'm really sort of hammering her on this idea of that she's not in reality about who her husband is. And she's like out to change him. And she's really pushing back, right? Like we've got rapport at this point. And again, this is a person who has a really tremendous pain point about this relationship. And part of what we haven't discussed yet with her is the relationship with her children. That is incredibly strained. That in my mind, I am like, you are flirting with missing out on precious time at a very pivotal moment in their childhood. And at this point, I've inserted it like twice in other sessions, but we haven't really gone toward it. So my point is, there's a genuine pain point. She's in a space that, quote unquote, is safe, and she's here to get better. She is here to do everything that she needs to do, allegedly, to get better, right? To change things. And yet what I see is someone who's very polished, very put together, doesn't shed a tear. So it's not the gestures individually, it is that the gestures are not there altogether. Okay. Here's the third or fourth. I don't know. I'm not like looking at my notes, and so now I don't know what number I'm on. I could be on number 3. I could be on number 4. The other big thing that really stands out to me and something I listen for, particularly on a consultation call, is that she is in a cycle of ongoing burnout and then almost mania. And it's not traditional mania that's really dysfunctional. It's mania like, I'm getting all these projects done and I feel like I can just start everything, right? And then she pushes and pushes and pushes until she burns out and she's flattened in bed. Okay? And the way part of how this shows up for her is with migraines. So I had a migraine this weekend and I was laid up in bed, and I continue to like track how often is this happening. And for her, this is just an accepted cycle within her body, right? Because it's happening continuously. Let me tell you, if you are someone who experiences this, for me, that is a red flag that there's something you're not dealing with. As long as you're working with a functional medicine doctor, you're doing your hormone labs, right? Like, as long as you're looking to see, is there anything happening underneath the hood? We start there. From my perspective, like, we always start there, right? I have several doctors that I'm like referring to, like working with, because I want to make sure that, like, guys, if your hormones are out of whack, particularly if you're a woman in midlife and you don't understand how your hormones are affecting you, then I see no reason to get in and start talking about our feelings, because you, like, it just might not be the issue, right? So this is someone who's doing all of those things, and she eats very well. She works with a nutritionist. She's doing all of the physical things to care for her body, and yet she's in this really intense cycle of push, 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 hit a wall. Push, 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 hit a wall. For me, in my brain, I'm like, ding, 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 there's something here, right? Here's the other thing that I am hearing and I'm getting into, or that I'm listening for, right, is black and white thinking. Now, you also heard me say earlier in this episode that I am someone who, like, I really appreciate black and white thinking, meaning I know this about myself. I know that I find comfort in things that are just a little bit more clear cut. Okay, it's like the anxiety in me, but I know this about me. I also know that the majority of the world, if not all of it, operates in gray. This is what it is to be human. This is what it is to move through the world in an integrated and cohesive way, is that things are not black and white. If you are someone who is overly identified with this idea of, no, there is a way to be right, there is a way to be wrong, and I'm going to tell you what it is, right? Or he needs to do this. My husband needs to plan a date night, otherwise he doesn't love me. Like, oh, ding, 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 like red flag. Okay, so if you're someone who's very stuck in this and cannot see the gray, cannot hold space that relationships operate in the gray, that is a red flag. Okay, here's the other thing that I'm listening to, that I'm hearing, is that there is an expectation that her husband should know. Part of my question in this session as I'm sitting with Lacey is, what did your husband say whenever you shared this with him? What did your husband say whenever you put the calendar invite and reminder, and then the other reminder, and then the other reminder on his calendar? What did he say when you had a conversation about it? And she would look down and would just be like, and it wasn't like a full-on look down, but she would like kind of glance down, right? And she said, well, I didn't share it with him. He should know that it's there. I do this every time. And he knows that I want to go on this. He knows that I want to go eat at this place. And he knows that this is important to me, but yet there was no conversation. What this tells me is there is an expectation on the people in your life to read your mind. So, ding, 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 this is a huge red flag of regression, because it will tell you it does make sense for your parents when you are 5 or 3 or 4 or 2 or 1 years old to read your mind, especially as a little bitty baby, okay? Like, you ask any newborn parent, we have a checklist, and you have to. Are they dirty? Are they hungry? Or are they sleepy? It is your job as parent to read that child's mind, figure it out, and then meet that need. That is literally what you sign up for when you decide to bring a human being into this world. That is not what your partner signs up for when you get married. I'm going to say it again. Your partner did not sign up to read your mind when you got married. Children expect their parents to read their minds, to understand what they want, because they are young and their brains are not fully developed yet. Grown freaking women should not be expecting that of their partners. Grown women, healthy, integrated women should not expect that their husbands, their partners are God and can read their minds. It's ridiculous. And it speaks to a childhood wound and not an actual relational issue. Okay, shout out to the yours, mine, ours framework. Stop putting it in the ours bucket. It's not a relationship issue. Now, what might be an issue is that you've not set a boundary. Okay, and I will tell you what this sounds like with it. What I had encouraged my client to do was to essentially set the boundary with her husband of, hey, I'm expecting that we are going to be going on a date in January, whenever this was, right? And if we don't, I just want to let you know that if this date has not happened by January 31st, then I will feel anger about that, and I will be emotionally distancing myself. This isn't about punishing. This is about, hey, like ABC when it comes to behavior. Antecedent, the thing that causes the behavior. B, the behavior itself. And then C is the consequence for this behavior. In this situation, if the behavior is that her husband has not planned the date, then the consequence is that Lacey is going to feel angry and she's going to pull back in the relationship. Okay, this isn't punishing, this isn't personal, this is just what would happen. And also, FYI, this is already what's happening. This is already what's happening. This also keeps Lacey in a place of groundedness and allows her to understand and really honor that this is the reality of the marriage that she is in. And it allows her husband to understand, okay, cool, these are the rules that we are playing by, right? The hallmark of a healthy marriage isn't a lack of conflict. It's not a lack of, or it's not even a good sex life or any of these things. The hallmark of a healthy marriage is two people who are in very deep reality about who they are married to, and they continue to work toward the same goal anyway. They say, I understand that you're not going to do it my way. I understand I'm not going to always do it your way, but hey, we can still play on the same team. That is what I'm listening for as therapist. And with the understanding, the acknowledgement that I'm not pushing things down, I'm not having to pretend like I don't care about those things. There's not something that's being pushed or avoided, right? At the expense of moving together in the direction of the same goal. That's what I'm listening for. So, let me go through my little list here. Yes, and then again, I don't know what number I'm on, guys. I don't have my headphones, and this might be how podcasting goes without my ADHD headphones and with a fancier setup. We will see. But the last one that I wanted to leave y'all with is that she is anticipating needs like crazy. Okay. This is something that stands out as a red flag for me, is that if you are in the business of anticipating needs at home for anyone other than your children, then you're probably a little bit unhealthier than you realize. So, and let me tell you, if you're satisfied in your relationship, because this is how my husband and I, we operate when we are in a good enough place, right? If all of our buckets, our relationship buckets are full, meaning sex life is good, meaning communication feels respectful, meaning we are having our one-on-one time in the way that we want to be, meaning our parenting alignment bucket feels really full, and our just feeling very pursued and doing things for one another like that. If all of our relationship buckets are full, we play to each other's strengths. I am someone who anticipates needs very well. Shout out to the parents who raised me. Okay. This is something that like naturally, quote unquote, I do very, very well. When I'm satisfied in my marriage, this is something that comes out. And what happens is I ask. I say, hey, I would like to help support in implementing this goal or getting, whatever it is, right? And here's really what I see my role as being. How does that feel for you? So there's a checking in. There's like checks and balances versus my husband is a lot better about just like relaxing. She's really, really good at encouraging me to take care of myself, telling me to step away from the children, even when they're freaking out and they're losing their minds. Recently, I started doing breath work down at Breathe Meditation. Anyone who is in the Dallas area, I will tell you, I make the trek from Oak Point, Texas, boonies, down to Highland Park. It's almost like a 3-hour round trip, like drive, and I'm there every single week right now because it has been a game changer for my ability to execute, right? And like really truly metabolize stress in the body. I will tell you, leaving to get out the door to go and do that is not easy. It is really hard. And usually there are children who are screaming at me and having a meltdown. And my husband is so good about, it shows up for him in the way that he takes care of himself and he prioritizes himself. He goes to jiu-jitsu religiously 3 days a week. And he also supports me in doing that too. Right? So again, this is what it looks like to operate good enough and play to each other's strengths versus what that turns into in stress. And what stands out as a red flag for me when I'm listening to women is if they are almost weaponizing and consistently anticipating needs and planning and operating as like project manager of the whole family and the marriage and at work, and they're resentful about it. That for me is a huge red flag. So now I want to hear from you. I want to know, did you like hearing this peek behind the scenes at what is happening in my brain? Because I will tell you, this is also something that I narrate a ton for my clients. My community of women is made up of sharp women. Like they are freaking intelligent. And I very firmly believe healing, it's ongoing, but it changes. And I don't believe that you need to be in this really active, in the dirt, and like in pain season. Like that doesn't have to take forever. It shouldn't take forever if you're doing it the right way. There is a way to do it that is more efficient. And along that process, something that I really value as a provider is to then give my clients a working model of the way that my brain works. So right now I have a group of women and I love them. Oh my gosh, I love these women. I love this group. Absolutely adore them. And part of what I am doing is not only helping them process content and the actual process of what is happening in the group for themselves. The other thing I hand them on the other end is what my brain is doing, because they can copy and paste that. Therapists are not special. Psychologists are not special. We were just trained to think about relationships and systems and groups. If you can take some of the skills that we have and go and implement them at work or in your marriage, it's harder in your marriage because it's a lot closer to home. But if you can go and copy and paste that into work, I will tell you what happens is that you become a leader who sets the tone in a meeting rather than reacts to it. you become a leader who moves 10 times faster, because now you're not only paying attention to the content of what's happening in a room, what the words that people are saying, but you are also able to read the dynamics and the process orientation. You get a bird's eye level view, and you start to be able to implement these behavioral changes across settings. So not just allowing your husband to accept the consequences of whatever it is that he is or isn't doing, but you also get to do that at work a million times easier. And this is what builds a healthy business. This is what builds a healthy company culture or a corporate America career that you don't end up getting burned out from. Right? So I want to know, did you enjoy hearing this material, hearing sort of what my brain does in a session, or were you like, girl, go put your headphones on, this was a little hard to follow? Give me some feedback here. I want to know whether or not you enjoyed hearing a peek behind the curtain, and which of these red flags are you now going to be listening for, because that's also what tends to happen. Alrighty guys, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I think I did this in the last episode, but lately, maybe it's January, I don't know, because that's what month I'm recording this in, but I just feel really emotional and grateful for the opportunity to get to create this space with you every morning on your way to work, on your day as you're picking out your outfits, whatever it is that you're doing. Podcasting is a really unique form, I think, in that it starts to build so much intimacy, and it is not taken for granted for me that you are offering me that time and that space. And I want to thank you for being here. Sincerely, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.